Well, howdy folks, Helcorex here, and welcome to Mercenary Thoughts from the Inner Sphere, episode 128. And today we're going to be delving back into another 3050 mech, which we've talked about, I think, in episode 57, I think it was. The Assassin. Now, the Assassin is a mech that definitely is one that needs lots of new technology to really wake it up, to make it a little bit better. Because right now, it's sadly lacking in many ways. Alright, the Assassin is a 40-ton mech. Comes in at about 700 battle value. It is a 40-ton mech. That is a 7.11.7. So yes, it has plenty of jump jets. It gets around pretty fast. Highly mobile. About as close as you can get to the 30-ton Spider for mobility when it comes with jump jets for the Inner Sphere. And yeah, it can get the job done pretty good as a scout mech. And that is its job, plain and simple. This is a scout mech that can be turned into a harasser. Now, it has 10 heat sinks. Single. Yes. Single heat sinks. It's the 3050 era, and you got plenty of access to good technology, and you put single heat sinks on it. It has 72 points of armor, which is like almost half of what it could carry around, because it throws all of its tonnage into the engines to get it around as fast as it can. But obviously this thing can't really take a lot of damage because, well, it doesn't have about half as much as armor as it can have. Now, for equipment wise, this thing has a medium pulse laser. Yes, we got a medium pulse laser. In the right arm. Oh, that's good. You got a jumping mech. I don't have a problem putting a medium pulse laser on a mech, because if you're jumping, you're going to have that 3 modifier, and then if you have a pulse laser, you're going to kick that back a little bit, and then so it just comes down to, you know, -1 for your shooting capability. And it carries around an LRM-5 in the right torso with a ton of ammo. And Artemis. Yes, Artemis. On an LRM-5. And then as the jump jets in the right, left, and center torso. Alright. So, yeah, if you go back and listen to the previous video, you know, you can talk about, you know, what it's capable of. Yeah, this is a scout mech. Its job is to go out there, get the eyes on. You know, this makes a great mech for if you got a fire support lance. It's got a lot of LRMs in it. This thing works good. You know, you can get it out there, and it's basically your eyes and ears. It's your cavalry, and then it can get into those flanks. Now, it doesn't have really a lot of firepower. It's like when I look at an assassin, I see one of those things on the battlefield. It can be a problem, but with a really up close, when it gets in, trying to get in behind you, it's got 1 pulse laser, so it's not going to do a lot of damage to you. So a lot of times it has a tendency to get ignored. Now, if it does get focused on, an entire lance or 2 decides to focus on it, this thing is going to die pretty quickly, because even a couple minor hits from basically even medium lasers is going to start punching holes through this thing. And that can be a problem, because it doesn't have the armor to stand up in a head-to-head fight. Because if you look at an arm, you know, you get hit in the arm, it's got 6 armor. 2 medium lasers or a large laser or a PPC or an autocannon 10 hit this thing in an arm, you are punching into the internal structure. And it's actually one of these mechs that has more internal structure value than it does armor. And that can be a bad thing when it comes to trying to stay alive. So there can be some things that we can do for this thing to help it out. Now, there is a couple other, obviously the Assassin-23, which was the original version, and then there's the 101, which sports a mix of short and long-range weapons. Then there is the Assassin-30 version, which carries around an LBX-5 autocannon and an ER medium laser, which, you're getting up to where you had some ER medium lasers. Works great. So that is an interesting little version there. And then there's a couple other ones that start throwing on XL engines. All right, so I've always talked about I'm not a big fan of XL engines, except for when it comes to really fast mechs. And this is a candidate for XL engines. Because you get something that's a 711, why not put XLs on it? What's going to hurt, is that, geez, I can put more armor on this thing. So, what I would do, the first thing is put on XL engines on it, ferrofibrous armor. All right, so with those two things right there, and double heat sinks. First of all, because if you jump 7 with this thing, that's 7 heat, and if you fire your medium pulse laser, you're going up on the heat scale. All right, just because you got 10 heat sinks. Now, some can argue and say, oh yeah, it's like the next turn I can jump away and not fire that pulse laser, and then I cool off. Yeah, that's true. But what's it going to hurt to have? Because you can throw them all on the engine, right? Because you got such a big engine on there, you can put double heat sinks on it. It's not going to take up any space. So that's one good thing about it. So I would put double heat sinks on it, first of all. Then I don't have to worry about any heat. Then, being that it is a mech that could benefit from an XL engine, throw an XL engine on it, and the first thing is, as I said, ferrofibrous armor and armor. You could almost max out this armor to, like, let's say a couple points short, like a half-ton short of maximum, which is turning this mech into something that can handle a few hits while it's doing its scouting job. Or, now that we have a whole bunch of extra tonnage left over, we can put maybe 2 more medium pulse lasers on this thing, so now you can carry around 3 of them. And let's see, this is the one version would like to run, or I have run with when I get up in the 3050. This is how I redesign this thing. Put XL engines on it, put an ER large laser on it. So obviously you want something that can shoot out a longer distance, and obviously I've dumped the LRM-5 because if I'm throwing an ER large laser on it, I can give up 2 hex range for something that's going to do more damage, and that would be the ER large laser. Yeah, you're doing difference between 5 and 8, so you're gaining 3 more points of damage, but it's all in one spot. Same thing can be said with the other one, but you're tossing in what 4 tons into something, and it's just with an extra ton you're getting a direct fire weapon. All right, so I like this one where you put in an ER large laser, then have 3 medium pulse laser, you got your double heat sinks, and you're running with 134 points of armor. So now you got something that is changed its role in a way. Is that before you were a scout, this still can be a great scout, but now you got something that is going to be a major problem for somebody, because they'll look at that thing and say, oh my gosh, that thing has to die, because if that thing gets in behind me, now it is a problem, because it can do a lot of damage. It can do, if you jump this thing, fire the 3 medium pulse lasers and throw them into someone's backside, you're doing 15 points of damage, possibly into the rear arc. Or if you see a flank that is highly damaged, jump into the right or left flank and then focus that damage into an area that's already got holes in it, increasing your chance of doing more damage. in hunting for crits type thing. So that is one thing I like about changing just by XL engines. You turned it into a mech that may not see a lot of time on the battlefield to something that is now becomes a major problem, and it's like, oh, I got to worry about that mech. And if you have a mech that's moving around and you got a lot of good modifiers because of its jumping capability, and it's forcing them to not fire at you, or try to fire at you, just try to get you down. Because if you're jumping 7 and you can fire the 3 medium pulse lasers and not worry about any heat, you're looking at just 4 mod right there. And if you can jump into any type of wood hex or behind some cover like a building or something, get some partial cover, and then you add in their movement modifiers and possibly even heat modifiers and stuff like that, this mech may not ever get hit. And then they realize that, and then they're going to ignore it. And then it's going to force them to, geez, I have to figure out what kind of mech I can have that can do the job to take this thing down and hunt it down. Now, if you're a clan, that's a different story, because typically clans have lots of good weapons on it. They got pulse lasers, they got usually targeting computers, they got good pilots. They're starting out with a 2-3 gun read to right off the bat. That is an equalizer, typically, when it comes to facing off against the Intersphere. But if you're fighting just your typical Intersphere type mechs that are a 4 or 5 pilot, they're going to have problems with this thing. And there you go. Now, some things you could think about is, if you want to go ahead and, let's say, if you remove the pulse lasers, or not the pulse lasers, but the large laser, and you decide you want to forego the having the large laser, you could keep the LRM-5, 3 pulse lasers. You know, you start keeping it within the parameters of what you had before, but to put a targeting computer on it. So that is a net zero effect when it comes to jumping. So now it's just your gunnery and their movement modifiers and other sort of goodness. That in there, and it becomes something that, you know, yeah, you're looking at a mech that's running around with a battle value around 1100, but it is something that's going to cause individuals not to ignore you, all right? Because they got to do something about you. And anytime you have a mech that has a high modifier to be shot at, that's saving your slower, lower modifier mechs from getting hit, all right? So it's kind of like, I was talking about this the other night with someone, is that sometimes Battletech is like chess, all right? When you think about chess, there's always going to be something you sacrifice. Typically, you can sacrifice a pawn to get yourself a better advantage on the playing board. And sometimes you can look at a mech like the Assassin that's been redesigned like this as your pawn. You're willing to sacrifice it for the greater good of the rest of your game play, because if they're going to try to focus that thing down, it's going to take a lot more firepower to take it down, which is saving your other mechs from being hit. And if they decide to ignore that, it's at their expense that they're going to be taking hits from something that could be doing some damage to them and going to hurt them in the long run. So it's a give and take. So you put it on them to make that decision to ignore you or not. And that can be something that's going to be worked out greatly into your favor. All right, so there's a couple good ideas what I think about the Assassin when it comes to the 3050, just by adding some different changes to this mech, keeping it in either its good configuration, current configuration, and then just adding on some goodies to it. And it can turn this mech into something that has a tendency to be take a couple hits and it's gone. Fire and forget and it's, you know, basically dead. Or you can keep it around for a few more turns and cause havoc and destruction in the backfield. Alright. Hopefully you guys like it. Like and subscribe. Share with all your friends. And we will talk with you later. Hellcracks out.